Well, one of the questions that we get is, how do I know that my kids are going to enjoy this curriculum? Major thing, I think, is that we keep kids from getting BFC. So what do I mean by BFC?
What is BFC?
Boredom, frustration, confusion. Somehow we do something special with our curriculum that prevents BFC. Is the Montessori concept of going from concrete to abstract. So let me demonstrate what I mean by that.
Let's take a look.
So this is 100. And in the curriculum, you don't need to know Montessori. You don't need to know the first thing about it because our curriculum is scripted, right? So you just read what's in quotes and you're good to go. There's no parent guides to read. There's no videos to watch. You pick up the book, you read what's in quotes. And one of the things that you'll be reading in quotes, because you'll sort of become a Montessori expert by osmosis after a while, is a 3-period lesson. So anytime there's something new, like this 100, we'll introduce it using the 3-period lesson, which goes something like, this is 100. Can you show me 100? And the child will explore and try to sense what 100 is. And then we'll ask, what's this called? And the child will say 100. And once we've successfully gone through the 3-period lesson, then we can use this in our work. So let's say we've gone through it, child knows this is 100. We'll ask the child, you may bring me 200s from the material bank. And all these manipulatives come with kit 1. And so we ask for 200, child comes back, and we say, I asked for 200s, and you brought me 200s. And I repeat that with 100. And I put the material together, and I ask the child, how much do we have now? The child says 300s or 300. Montessori has some principles that we've embodied through our pioneering work with this concept of the 2 C's. Every curriculum goes for mastery. You don't buy it. No curriculum is going to say, just use our stuff, you're not going to master anything. Everybody's into mastery, or what we call competency. And we're no exception. ShillerLearning, with our math, with our language arts, we want kids to have competency. But that's not all. What we discovered is there's a missing second C that you only find with Schiller Math with our Montessori-driven principled approach. And here's what I'm talking about. That second C is what I call closure. Let's examine the 4 lesson outcomes that come about because of the possibilities of competency and closure, the combinations. Fast competency, fast closure. That's when they get it right away, but they're also ready to move on right away. Maybe the learning styles don't match. What do I mean by learning styles? That's another Montessori thing. Address all parts of the brain. Every curriculum's got visual. We don't want to overdose on that either. So we want a good mix of that and auditory. The Schiller Math kits, all the kits come with a few dozen songs that integrate into the lesson plan. These are catchy songs. We had them made for us to integrate with the curriculum. But then there's also tactile. These are the nerve endings in the fingertips that sense temperature and pressure. That reaches one part of the brain, different from auditory, different from visual. But there's another set of neurons that are in the big muscle groups. They're in the thighs, the abs, and the shoulders. These are muscle neurons. They're in a completely different part of the brain. It drives me crazy when I hear people talk about, we're tactile kinesthetic. They're not the same. They're completely different. We get kinesthetic getting kids out of the workbook, running, jumping, dancing, singing, twisting, turning. Tactile is working with manipulatives, feeling the stereo-agnostic sense of things, weight and volume. It's a Montessori term. Well, these learning styles are critical. And so when kids are getting fast competency and fast closure, it's usually because the learning style of the lesson doesn't match that of the child, which is fine. But here's what happens. You have a curriculum that's got 15 practice problems. And parents says, okay, we got to go through all 15. But when there's fast competency and fast closure, and they've done the first, and the kid says, I'm ready to move on, whether they're 3 years old or 13 years old, it's time to move on. Don't do all those practice problems, because if you do, it's going to result in BFC. They're going to be bored. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to be confused. Why are they making me do this? Why does curriculum writer make us do this? The fact is, as a curriculum writer, I can't put down the exact right number of practice problems. It's going to vary every time by every child. The second possibility of the lesson outcomes is they have competency, but they don't have closure. Ever seen a child do something over, or an adult, do something over and over and over and over? They get it. They have competency, but they don't have closure. And so as parents, we're tempted to say, and teachers, oh, honey, I see that you get this. And boy, we've got a lot to cover. So, why don't we move on? But we don't recommend saying this. Why? Well, there's a focused and concentrated child doing some work. They know it, but something's percolating up there, and we don't know what. Maria Montessori says, never interrupt a focused, concentrated child. So in a way, it's the worst thing we can do. And when we interrupt that child, which happens every day in the public school, 45 minutes up, they're engrossed in an activity, they have to stop, and you wonder why there's so much ADHD in the world. The secret mission of ShillerLearning is to eliminate ADD by letting kids follow the child, letting kids get closure. And this is about Montessori's principle of following the child. So instead, we recommend saying something like, wow, you are focused, you are concentrated. Let me know if you need any help, and walk away. No closure, walk away. That's a means of following the child. Doesn't mean literally follow the child, it means follow what the child is doing. And here, they're focused, they're concentrated. We want them to get closure. So what you might see with Schiller Math and Schiller Language Arts is, because parents ask me all the time, how much time should my child spend on a particular lesson? Well, we've seen kids, they'll do 10 lessons in 10 minutes, and the 11th lesson they'll take 3 days to complete. There's no right answer except for what you put that child in control, you follow the child, that's your answer. Something else I want to mention on that, those 15 practice problems in that first lesson we talked about, it's not going to be enough for the child who doesn't have closure. They're going to want more. So we recommend something interesting to parents, because they come to us to say, we need more practice problems. We say, have the child create the practice problems. And the parents sometimes might say, well, wait a minute, you're the curriculum writer, shouldn't you be doing that? And we say, well, actually, there's a benefit for the child to do that. Because when they create those problems, they might do it just right and fit the pattern of that particular problem, and then they could do it. You can also flip it and have them ask you, and occasionally get a problem wrong and see how they respond. This opens up all new sets of wonderful interactions, great learnings. Love mistakes, embrace mistakes, learn from the mistakes. So here's what may happen though. They may create math problems that are a little bit different. There's something in the pattern that's a little bit different in the way they made it, and all of a sudden, the problems are way too easy, or they're impossible. They can't solve it, or they're like really hard for some reason. What a great learning opportunity. In a public school, they'd say, well, that's not part of what we're learning now. Don't worry about that. In your home school, in your charter school, you can now say, wow, isn't that interesting? I wonder why that is. Here's a pattern. Math is about patterns. Language arts, it's about patterns. Life is about patterns. Relationships. We can identify and help kids learn patterns early. How wonderful. So they're looking at this, and now they have the opportunity to see what's different. Wonderful learning opportunity. That comes from the second lesson outcome. The third lesson outcome comes when they don't have competency. There's two possibilities. They're like pretty okay with that, and if they're not understanding a particular topic, the worst thing we can do is say, well, let's do these drill problems, because boy, are they going to get frustrated. So instead, what we recommend saying is something like this, even to a 4-year-old, using this language. Well, you may not be developmentally ready for this right now. That's fine. Why don't we put this lesson aside for now? We can make a note in our tracking sheets that this is a lesson to revisit. And we'll come back to it later. Maybe you'll be ready for it then. So kids who don't have competency and they have closure on that fact will say, great. And by the way, I don't think I'm going to be ready then, but that's okay. Let's put it aside for now. The good news is with Schiller is that you can move ahead in the curriculum. It's not like it's a ladder and you're missing a rung and you can't keep climbing. With Schiller, you continue doing lessons in the book, and pretty soon you're going to come to another lesson that touches on this same concept from a different learning style. It may click, it may match, and all of a sudden you've killed two birds with one stone right there. That's the third lesson outcome. The final lesson outcome is where they don't have competency, and you've said, maybe you're not developmentally ready for this right now. Why don't we move on? We can visit this later. And the child says, what do you mean I'm not, whatever that word was, ready for you, ready for this right now? I want to do this. I can do this. Well, this is both exciting and dangerous. I also want to mention one thing about that. There's a wide range of manipulatives. Our kit 1 weighs 22 pounds. There's a lot of stuff in there. I have never heard the complaint that from a parent that, my child just got tired of all these manipulatives. Don't you have more? We've never heard that. So the danger is there are curricula that focus on 1 or 2 manipulatives. Maybe there's just the decimal material and they get tired of that. You got to throw out the curriculum. Maybe there's a curriculum that has just, say, an abacus and everything is focused on the abacus. Well, eventually the child's going to get tired of that abacus and you have to throw out the curriculum. I think that's another reason we've had so much success is the wide variety of sizes and shapes and textures and volumes and color that keep kids engaged throughout several years of work. So that's our 2 C's, our pioneering work with 2 C's and how we're helping children reach their full potential and avoid the FC.